Well, hello everyone. I'm Tom Roberts, the Director of Vendor Programs for the PS&I Global Alliance. Welcome to our webinar with our global vendor partner, Williams AV. And once again, it's my pleasure to introduce Nancy Blanchard for a program on demystifying assisted listening compliance in education. Today's webinar will be recorded. A copy will be made available to you as soon as it's available to us. All attendees will be in the listen-only mode, and we'll have a short Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Now let me introduce Nancy Blanchard, Global Consultant Liaison and the Director of the PS&I program at Williams AV. Welcome, Nancy. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Yes, good morning. And can you believe it's 2022? This is our first webinar of a series of 4 that we'll be doing. And for today's webinar is that those that are attending, you may be a consultant or an integrator, and you play an important role in working with schools and helping education clients to be able to navigate through regulations. And it could be from providing guidance, especially when it comes to those confusing laws that I will discuss today, to find solutions for them to be able to comply, but also to find the audio and visual solutions that can deliver fair and equal learning opportunities for everyone. So let's discuss when state, federal regulations and programs influence how local school districts must operate to meet compliance for students with hearing disabilities. Regulations and laws, they can be confusing and contain conflicting information and no suggestions on how to fund or to carry out the provision in the law. So I'm going to go over these requirements today with what they must do to meet accommodations, and that be to comply with students with hearing loss, but also to review assistive listening technology solutions that can help with compliance. So the areas that I'm going to cover are the government mandates for schools for students with hearing loss, what is the available school funding, and then also the technology for Title II assistive hearing compliance. So what resources are available? Many schools have tools or programs in place to help students with vision or speech disabilities. But did you know that for hearing disabilities, those are often overlooked? And with school administrators, they have a lot to balance, from maintenance needs to staffing issues to protecting the health and safety of students and staff. But they also have the added responsibility of keeping track of state and federal regulations that influence how local districts operate. So there are federal regulations that guarantee free and appropriate public education, as well as that schools are responsible, and you might not have known this, but to provide some same accommodations for hearing impaired parents. It could be guardians, caregivers of students. So it's not only the students and they in their classrooms. So why hearing assistance? There is a big difference between the ability to hear and the ability to understand what you hear. There's a higher prevalence of hearing loss. So we're observing a rising incidence of hearing loss in the younger generation groups. And 1 in 10 school children suffers hearing loss. And I mean, this is no surprise to us, but also with the teen, hearing loss is growing from using earbuds with very loud music for prolonged periods of times. And if we can't hear, we can't understand, which results in lower academic achievement without assistance. And in addition to that, is that hearing loss can lead to social, emotional issues ranging from lower self-esteem, social isolation to other behavioral issues. And so in the school setting, is that students that are experiencing even mild hearing loss are at a risk of falling behind. And that's where with assistive listening technology is that it helps them to become engaged in their classes and to improve their comprehension of classroom instruction. So this just gives you an example of the global disability legislation, but more countries are increasingly enforcing law that's protecting people with disabilities, including hearing loss. And they have developed their own legislation to protect the rights of individuals who experience significant hearing loss and are entitled to access to broadcast audio as everyone else. And the good news is that to support those that require assistance with their hearing, there are myriad of devices as well as systems available. And so just as an example, Canada has their Accessible Canada Act. Australia is the Disability Discrimination Act, and Europe has the European Accessibility Act. But for those of you that are international that are watching this morning, you can see on here for your country what your legislation regulations are. So while schools need to implement new technology or services to comply with federal laws for hearing disabilities, by far the most important, let's say, benefits for students outweigh the effort in increasing, maintaining, and or improving the functional capabilities of a student with a disability. So what we have is you've got auxiliary aids, services, devices, and technologies that support the students as well as family members. And those range from interpreters to real-time computer-aided transcription services, assistive listening systems, open and closed captioning. But it's that feeling of inclusivity and independence that improves a student's performance. So let's consider the three legislations we'll refer to understand and communicate, as well as recommendations such as yourselves that deal with the education market, with Williams AV, who has been doing this for over 45 years in dealing with schools. So there's three school mandates for hearing loss. And I'll go through these in the next couple of slides in detail. But the first one is the Title II of the American Disabilities Act, which states that schools must provide resources to students, and that be technology and other auxiliary aids. The second one is Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and that is a federal special education law to create a level playing field for students with disabilities. And then finally is the Rehabilitation Act, which is Section 504, and that prohibits discrimination of qualified individuals with disabilities, including students with hearing impairments. The first one, the ADA Title II, that is designed to ensure that students who have vision, hearing, and or speech disabilities have equal learning opportunities as those without a disability. And did you know hearing disabilities are frequently overlooked? So to achieve the compliance, as I had mentioned, is that there are auxiliary aids and services for effective communication for those students. And then also one thing that's frequently overlooked with the law is that it's required to provide effective communication beyond students. So this is now where we have the assistance for families, for individuals in the community, and then also for students in their programs. So think about it. Things such as student registration, parent-teacher conferences, field trips, back to school nights, open houses. It could be ceremonies such as graduation or orientation. So you have the general community that is attending, or the caregiver or the guardian or the parent of those students who might also have a hearing loss. Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. That includes students with, but not limited to, a hearing impairment or language impairment and visual impairment. So this is where they make available a free, appropriate public education to ensure that there are special education and related services to eligible children with disabilities. So for assistive technology, it can be any item, any equipment, or product systems that are used to maintain, increase, or improve the functional capabilities of a child with a disability. And so it goes also one step further, is that you have services the school district that needs to provide to ensure that assistive technology benefits is helpful to the student. So that includes evaluation of individual and technology needs, also the purchasing, the leasing, and providing in the acquisition of assistive technology, but then also selecting it, fitting it, designing it, customizing it, adapting, applying, repairing, etc. of the assistive technology. And then finally there's the training that's involved, also the technical assistance for an individual or a family with disabilities. And then there is the Rehabilitation Act. This is Section 504. And this federal law outlines the need for schools to provide, be it regular or special education related aids and services. Some of the accommodations could be where a student needs to sit up front or needs a little bit longer to complete a test or homework, or maybe can rewrite a test. So, or even be able to attend speech classes during regular school hours. But the Section 504 is that it applies not only to elementary, but to secondary schools and other entities. And a child with a disability has equal access to education, including accommodations and modifications. And assistive technology is considered a reasonable accommodation according to Section 504. So just a quick summary of those three mandates that I had just talked about. Three legislations with minor differences in each mandate, but all have one commonality, that schools are required to provide effective communication through technology, devices, and accommodations, not only to students, but also to individuals in the community. Funding. Now, funding is an important topic because without funding, school districts face challenges in how do they pay for the mandates required. And often they're forced to reduce funding to meet regulations for other programs, or if they ignore the state and federal mandate, there are risks such as stiff penalties. So there are several sources of funding available that you might not necessarily be aware of to schools to pay for technology to support student hearing loss. So what funding assistance is there? Well, it includes provisions for educational technology, including assistive listening devices or adaptive technology for students with disabilities. And with education budgets that are more constrained than ever, investing in technology solutions to meet federal regulations for accessibility and equality of educational experience might seem overwhelming at best, and in some cases downright impossible. So I'm going to go over the funding, and first one is the CARES Act. This is known as the Coronavirus Aid and Economic Security Act, the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act, and the American Rescue Plan. Those total $190 billion and provide state and district leaders with funds to address the academic disruption caused by the pandemic. So this is to purchase educational technology, could be hardware, software, as well as connectivity for students that are served by their local educational agency. And so that results in, or aids in, regular and substantiative educational interaction between students and their classroom instructors, including low-income students and students with disabilities. That includes assistive technology. Schools need to act quickly, though, because this money, to take advantage of these funds, it will be allocated. The deadline is September the 30th of this year. So that's one to consider, the CARES Act. There's also another one, which is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. With March 2021, a third pandemic stimulus bill was dubbed the American Rescue Plan that was signed into law. and it provides public school districts across the country with $122 billion in elementary and secondary school emergency funds. In addition, is that there's another $2.75 billion that was set aside for non-public schools. That is the emergency assistance to non-public school funds. And then also there is the ESSER and GEAR funds that may be used for any activity authorized by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Another one is the Every Student Succeeds Act. That pertains to providing funding for special education services and more at schools in low-income areas. And with assistive listening is that its support for students with hearing impairments is included in the Act. There's also the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act funding. There's $13 billion in this funding that accounts for the bulk to the federal government's ongoing contribution to special education and related services. So the Act strives to cover 40% of the excess cost that schools bear while providing special education services. And then finally, we have the district technology funding. It's the district school superintendent that serves as the fiscal agent for county school districts. And with this funding for the district is that it's frequently used for tools used by students and staff throughout the school. So relatively small amount of funding is required to purchase assistive listening devices to ensure that a school is compliant with federal regulations for students with hearing loss. So now the question is, why does compliance with assistive listening requirements matter? It can seem overwhelming with these federal regulations that I have discussed with you today in meeting compliance, but the greater picture is it's critical to the success of every student, that their education and development aren't put at risk due to non-compliance. So what are acceptable assistive devices? Schools must consider not only the classroom, but the general community, the general population, and students attending, as I had discussed earlier, school plays, open houses, teacher-parent conference, registration. So let's look at assistive listening technology that helps schools meet ADA Title II compliance. Now, in some classrooms, they're equipped with a voice lift system, sound system, and that would be a mini PA system portable with a mic amp speaker. While these systems help to increase the sound in a classroom, they may not be enough for students with hearing loss, and they are not ADA Title II compliant. In fact, increased amplification is worse for hearing loss students, and they struggle in hearing clearly what the teacher and the lesson is. So classroom noise, such as the rustling of papers, typing, we all know of the pencil tapper, or whispers or background chatter, it makes it difficult for a student to hear what is taught, and therefore it's hard to concentrate when hearing these distractions with these systems. With Williams, as I mentioned, being in the business for over 45 years with assistive listening solutions, is that we offer to the educational market solutions from FM, analog RF, to also IR, infrared, analog IR, to if you have a hearing aid, induction loops, and then Wi-Fi services we're all familiar with because we've got our own devices and that we're connecting to Wi-Fi. And then finally, DigiWave, which is our digital RF. But in addressing the assistive listening market, we also stepped back and looked at what the next chapter is. And the next chapter is the assistive understanding as well as assistive visual market. So we have expanded our offerings and now have an AI-powered captioning, which is open captioning, and translation solutions, caption assist and convey video. So not only are you able to hear what is the lesson is or the ceremony that's taking place, but you can visually see it up on screen real time as the speaker, the teacher, is speaking. So Williams AV, we provide a portable or a fixed kit solution, and that delivers the sound of the teacher directly to the student, and it removes any unintended and distracting background noise or sound. So it uses radio frequency, FM. It works well with existing classroom sound, field reinforcements, as well as satisfies the ADA Title II requirements for hearing disabilities. So in a larger group setting, we have the FM ADA Kit 1. It's an economical solution. It satisfies the ADA requirements in a larger group setting. That could be an auditorium, a gymnasium, a theater environment. But you have a transmitter which then broadcasts a speaker's voice, a music program, or an audio service wirelessly up to 1,000 feet to a listening audience. And in that kit, there are 2 receivers that operate on the 72 to 76 megahertz frequency, and that is to pick up the broadcast, and then you have earphone or neck loops for listening to the use. If you want to consider a portable solution, which we do offer these into, especially the K1 through K12, is that students take this kit with them as they move between classrooms. It could be labs, media centers, small group settings, but it removes the need to be able to equip each classroom with a fixed installed system. Schools, usually they'll purchase between 2 to 3 per building, or depending on how many students, but it follows a student from class to class. It also has, this kit, the added benefit of being used by school visitors who may require hearing assistance. So this one, it's the same. It operates on the same frequency, 72 to 76 megahertz. It comes in, as all of our kits do, you have a carry case with an FM transmitter. This one has 4 receivers and headphones, neck loops, and a microphone. And I just want to point out for anybody who is watching this internationally this morning, is that the FM ADA compliance kit is approved here in the US, but the system may not be used if the government does not allow for 72 to 76 megahertz. Then that is our next solution, which I'll talk about, which is DigiWave. That's where we're finding that most of our international clients are using. So I just want to point that out to you, is that you need to check with your government's radio regulations for 72 to 76 megahertz operation. So DigiWave is our digital RF solution, and it's unique in the sense it has a couple different modes. But more importantly for the school, is I want to point out to you, is that there's an interpretation mode, and that allows for an interpreter to listen to one channel and then send their interpreted language on a separate channel using one portable device supporting ESL students. The second one is the hearing assist mode. That allows the ability for several talkers, for example, in a classroom, to be heard. But it's a 2-way communication, and it operates on a 2.4 gigahertz. And so this is the one that I wanted to point out, is that it's used internationally because they're not able to use the regular FM frequency. Hearing loop consideration. So this takes the sound source, the spoken word, it transfers it directly and clearly to a listener's hearing aid equipped with a T-coil. So when it's routed through a hearing aid, it's tuned to their hearing loss specifically, and that results in increased intelligibility and better. It can also be installed in larger spaces such as gymnasiums, theaters, or as a countertop product to be installed at the front desk, reception, check-in, ticket counters, or any other service counter in the school. But there's no background noise, interference, or distortion because you've got your T-coil hearing aid. There's no need to borrow a receiver, and it does meet all of the ADA accessibility requirements. Another one is the portable induction loop system. It's light, it's compact, easy to install. It operates either on a battery or AC powered. It'll pick up external voices with an integrated microphone, or you can use an external microphone. But the student or the parent can be able to take that from location, from class to class to class. And what happens is that it transmits the spoken word directly and clearly to a listener's hearing aid equipped with a T-coil. So now let's get into and introduce to you AI-powered real-time open captioning and translation solutions, which is Caption Assist and Convey Video. As student populations become more diverse, schools are facing challenges of how to effectively support not only ESL students, but their non-native speaking family members, guardians, their support system. So this would be an alternative when a human open captioning or sign language interpretation is not economical or practical. Also, it has broader applications for education where hearing clearly is critical, but sound reinforcement is not always possible. It provides an affordable, accurate, a reliable solution that's available 24/7. So captions and translation can be used as an alternative solution for assistive listening for individuals who are hearing impaired. It has a variety of different applications. It could be used as a solution for security and check-in desks, classrooms, larger venues with video screens to display the captioning and the translation. But the language services industry is expected to continue to grow and to reach by 2023, which is next year, to reach $70 billion. This just shows you there's, with Convey Video, which is the translation, is that there's 109 translated languages that are supported. For Caption Assist, it's 73 input languages, but overall 153 dialects. As the neural engine is learning new languages, then we have additional languages that are added and supported. So how does this all work? Let me go through the audio video flow with you. So you have some type of source of video, a camera, a laptop, a document, camera. And so then you have audio, a microphone, or it could be some other audio source. And with that input is that as the person is speaking, that audio is sent out to the cloud, a neural engine. It is then transcribed into video with a text overlay. So I'm going to show you three different options. If we were to use Caption Assist, that's taking the native language and then transcribing it into that same language, but you've got the text that's written over a display. So I choose English. It is going to show up on the display as English. So it supports the deaf and the hard of hearing. If now we wanted to perhaps not only have just the open captioning in one language, but we wanted to reach a larger population, then we might use Convey Video, where you're choosing one input language like English, and then you have an output language such as Chinese, Swedish, French. And so that translated language is shown up on display. Or the third option is that you can have actually the presenter and the translated language displayed on the display. In terms of support, we have TechBlue support for our CSPs. They are here. They offer a variety of different services that are free, such as design services. So if you do have a project and perhaps it does involve an induction loop, they are with you from the beginning until the end, doing designs, also offering to you what would make sense in that particular space. They have spec development, training, coverage modeling, and also provide disability ADA updates. Those are our three gentlemen. We have Daryl, Matt, and Bob. And to get in touch with them, you can either call our Eden Prairie office, or you can also reach out to them by email, techblue@williamsav.com. In terms of local PS&I support, I've listed our territory sales leaders here. Tim Frankie, and he handles the northeastern part of the US as well as Eastern Canada and the Southeast. Tim Henry, he's Midwest and Central US and Central Canada. And then we have David Bertrand, who is Western region and Western Canada. Per Person, he is the VP of International Sales. And then there is myself, your PS&I champion. And I can be, you can send me an email at nancyb@williamsav.com. So what all is involved in the CSP program for you from Williams AV is that with support and pricing, we offer pricing discounts and support with design assistance. We will bring you leads, and we have trade shows now that are happening. So that's a good thing. And if you bring leads to Williams AV, we will make sure that they are kept confidential and work with you. Educational programs, product marketing, and service training, we do have available via web video, a webinar, or on site, as we are all now being able to return back to work and outdoor. And this is arranged on a company by company basis. There's also advanced loop certification with 8 RU credits available through us. And then finally, with marketing material, all related marketing material and sales information, you can be able to access that through our site, williamsav.com. Contact your local territory sales leader or international distributor. But that is everything from videos to high-res photos, sell sheets, manuals, white papers. And my contact information, our office is based in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, but I am on the sunny coast of California in Northern California. And after today's webinar, attendees, if you're interested, everything that I have discussed, there will be a PowerPoint, but also this resource tool that was developed by our marketing team that goes through and talks about the 3 legislations as well as the funding that's available. And so I wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time for our first webinar of 2022. I'm going to pass it back over to Haley to see if there's any questions, any input, comments that you have.
Yes, thank you so much, Nancy. We do have a couple questions for you. How accurate is the convey with dealing with heavy accents of the speaker?
It is 94%. And that is that it learns over time. It's phrase based, so it will listen and then it will take that context and translate. I mean, Integrate, I was talking to Haley the last trade show, gosh, well, we did ISE, but Integrate in Australia, there was a Turkish gentleman that came up, and so he was kind of offstandish, and I said to him, listen, the best way to do it is how about we'll choose Turkish, you can see the translation, and it worked out well. So it deciphers medical terms. We've taken it through that. So it is accurate at 94%.
Wonderful. And is it trainable, meaning, the longer that somebody uses that, will it pick up better as it goes on?
Absolutely, yes.
Wonderful. What AI engine does the system use? Is this a Google engine or a Dragon, perhaps?
Currently, it's Google, but any other neural engine, what we look at it as that we will work with. But in starting off with it's Google's engine, and it's not the Google Translate. Google has its own specific engine that it uses. There is a different neural engine for third parties.
Wonderful. And just one last time, Nancy, can you just display your contact information?
Sure.
Perfect. And you guys, we will also be following up with you immediately after this call with Nancy's contact information, as well as all the Williams AV information. So you are just fine with that. And so with that, that's all the questions we currently have. So Tommy, back over to you.
Yeah, I see Tony joined the call. Tony, is there anything you'd like to say? Tony, you're muted.
I think that's a party foul after all this time in COVID, right? We're not allowed to be on mute anymore. So I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us today. Many of you have known Williams as the assistive listening company for a long time. And as Nancy shared, we've broadened our horizons really to be the assistive communications company. And that is with the number of phone calls and inquiries and requests that we're getting from the education space about really what is required and what is the best piece of technology or support to put in for my space. We thought this would be a timely topic. There is a lot of money flowing into the education space right now to support these initiatives. And we wanted to share some of our findings. If you haven't done so already, when you registered or as it was referenced here, we've tried to summarize this in a nice guide so that can be a good follow-up piece for you to refer to some of the information Nancy has provided. And just know that we're here to help. We have a team of people, they understand the technology, they understand what the requirements are, and we'd love to partner with you anywhere you see that our technology and expertise can benefit students in their educational journey.
Well, Tony and Nancy, we can't thank you enough. You know, this applies to the corporate world as well. And education, you know, we're so proud to be a part of an effort. You know, anytime we can try to address those barriers for people with disabilities, you know, allowing PS&I to participate in bringing those products to market, you know, it's not just a privilege, it's an honor. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you.
Well, going forward for our general audience, Williams AV products and services are available through any of our Alliance members. We call them certified service providers. They can be found worldwide, and you can locate them on the PS&I website at psni.org. For our certified service providers on the call today, the details of the Williams AV program with our Alliance can be found on the member portal. And as Nancy mentioned, her contact information will be included in the deliverables that you'll be receiving following the meeting. And my contact information is very simple. It's just T Roberts for Tom Roberts at psni.org. Nancy, is there anything else you want to add before we close?
No, that's everything. Just thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Very well done. Great stuff, guys. Really appreciate it. Well, with that, on behalf of the PS&I Global Alliance, thank you everyone for being with us today. This concludes our webinar. Have a wonderful day. Take care and stay safe.